Hello? There's 2 hooks to rescue, Mayday! Get ahead, West. Fast, Mayday, what's your location? Get the panel out of here, hurry up! We need radio silence, baby. Water in that 2.5 inch line. 48 inch water in a 2.5 inch line. To the rope, to the rope. 35 in the rear, 35 in the rear.
Welcome to the Emergency Traffic Podcast. Welcome to another episode of the Emergency Traffic Podcast, where we talk about firefighter line of duty deaths, review the reports to learn more about these tragic incidents. I'm your host, Paul. I'm on my own today, trying to squeak out one more episode for June here, in between trips and holidays and stuff like that. So rather unique. I haven't done one on my own for a few years on this one. But anyway, here we go. This is going to be episode number 76. We're going to talk about a tragic event that occurred in Muncie, Indiana in 2011. First of all, we always do one of these FDNY tips from the FDNY tips book. And this is regarding the Los Angeles compressed natural gas vehicle explosion that occurred a year ago or so, and a firefighter, I believe, were injured. Here we go. Last week, an explosion occurred while members of Los Angeles Fire Department were operating at a compressed natural gas vehicle fire. According to the LAFD, firefighters arrived to find a semi-truck with no trailer attached on fire. The Clean Air compressed natural gas truck contained 2 100-gallon tanks, pressurized by at least 3,000 psi, which were being exposed to fire. Crews applied water to the flames and were nearly completed extinguishment when one of the tanks exploded violently. The explosion occurred 6 minutes after units arrived on scene. 9 firefighters sustained injuries, including 2 with critical injuries. Compressed natural gas fueled vehicles can be found throughout your urban areas. Extinguish the fire by stopping the flow of gas. If the flow of gas cannot be stopped, do not extinguish the fire. Let it go. Let it burn. Do not apply water to CNG cylinders exposed to fire, because this may cool the pressure relief valves, PRDs, resulting in it not activating. This can result in a catastrophic cylinder failure, high pressure gas rupture. Exploding cylinders can also rocket. When the pressure relief device activates, it will not reset or close. The gas in the cylinder will burn off, so it's not a valve, it's really a plug. The result is often a jet of fire which may go out and reignite several times. It may take 10 or 15 minutes for the high pressure release to subside and up to 30 minutes to fully discharge, depending on the size of the tanks involved. Establish a minimum safe perimeter of 100 feet around the vehicle. Pressure relief devices are located on both ends of the cylinders, and they may be vented up and sideways. Additional pressure relief devices may be located on the bottom of the vehicle on the regulator. Always approach from a 45-degree angle. If the compressed natural gas cylinders are not involved in the fire, proceed with normal extinguishment tactics. CNG-fueled vehicles are identified with a blue diamond sticker with a white CNG lettering. These stickers are small and may not be easy to see. That's the end for that tip. It also goes on about LPG on the tip. You can download these tips on the web. They're PDF FDNY tips book. This is number 19 of 2024. We also, of course, have LPG, propane, liquefied gas stored in cylinders at temperature above its boiling point, remains under pressure in liquid form as long as the container remains closed to the atmosphere. Heat applied to the cylinder will cause excessive pressure to build up in the cylinder, opening the relief valve. There is a great possibility that a cylinder involved in a fire will BLEVE, boiling liquid expanding vapor explosion. A BLEVE can occur in a matter of minutes. Satisfactory performance of a relief valve cannot prevent the BLEVE. When a BLEVE occurs, the propane in the cylinder will usually result in an explosion and a fireball, with the cylinder becoming a flying projectile. Many vehicles are dual-fueled and use both propane and gasoline alternatively. A fire that can originate within a gasoline leak may eventually involve both fuels. The basic principle is that of a propane fire should not be extinguished except by shutting off the flow of escaping propane. It is important that we extinguish a gasoline fire by using foam, dry chemical, water spray, at the same time cooling the propane cylinder with hose streams to prevent a levy. Versus the difference with CNG, do not apply water to the cylinder. So LPG, they say cool cylinder with water, but do not apply water to the cylinders on compressed natural gas. Similar to the two events that we did years ago, we did the one that was in Quebec at a farm. It was like episode 4 or something. And then we also did the Kingman, Arizona one that happened back in 77 or 75, where a large storage tank caught fire and killed a bunch of firefighters in Kingman, Arizona. We have that in our archives if you're interested. Okay, back to Muncie, Indiana in June 15th of 2011. A 40-year-old male career firefighter lost his life at a church fire after the roof collapsed, trapping him in fire. The fire department was, at the time, it's a career fire department operating from 5 stations with 103 uniformed members, serving a population of over 67,000 people within an area of about 39 square miles. The population could increase to over 85,000 when the local university was in session. The fire department had 5 engines, 2 of those were spare engines, 2 quints, 2 rescue trucks, 1 was a spare, and 2 aerial platform trucks, 1 was a spare. The city currently utilizes county EMS service to provide medical care and patient transport where needed. All field personnel worked a 24-hour duty shift, 0700 to 700, every other day for 5 days and then received 4 consecutive days off before repeating the schedule. The fire department operated with approximately 30 personnel on each of 3 operating tours, which routinely included 2 captains and 5 lieutenants. Currently, the fire department attempts to maintain 4 personnel per apparatus as their minimum staffing per apparatus, but the current union contract with the city only specifies that there be minimum staffing of 3 per apparatus. However, there was no overall shift minimum staffing level. The last time fire personnel were hired was prior to 2009, so this is 2011 that this occurred. The fire department currently has 2 certified incident safety officers, but no procedures are in place to have an incident safety officer respond to fire incidents. The IC maintains the responsibility on the fireground unless he delegates the position to another individual on the scene. Also, the roaming battalion chiefs are not afforded aides to assist them, and no designated accountability officer is assigned. All stuff we've talked about before on other podcasts. Since 2007, the fire department has seen significant changes, including 3 different fire chiefs, station closures, and firefighter layoffs in June of 2009. Remember, there was a big depression or recession in 2008. I know a whole bunch of fire truck manufacturers folded too, and that's when the bailouts occurred for General Motors and Dodge or Chrysler and others. The fire chief position is appointed by the city mayor. The fire chief is tasked with appointing a deputy chief, chief fire investigator, and training officer. The ranks of the battalion chief, captain, lieutenant, and sergeant are tested positions. The fire department employs a merit commission whose sole duties include overseeing the application and appointment to the fire department, prohibited political activity, discipline, past performance rating, promotion and promotion eligibility of the fire chief and deputy chiefs. At the time of the incident, applications for a higher position within the fire department did not have to meet any minimum requirements. In 2009, the fire department was operating from 7 fire stations with relatively the same amount of personnel per duty shift. The layoff of 32 firefighters lowered the department's staffing by a third, well below the department's minimum staffing levels. 1 station became the department's training office, while the other remained closed, which led to 5 operating stations at the time of the incident. The closed fire station was approximately 1.5 miles from the incident. Prior to the reductions, the fire department was able to get at least 14 personnel on scene within 8 minutes, 86% of the time. But following the reductions, this response time was achieved only 39% of the time. In 2010, the fire department received a SAFER grant, which was able to hire back 25 of its 32 laid-off personnel. The 2 fire stations have remained closed. There's a note here that due to a flood in March of 2011, an additional station was closed, but the apparatus and personnel were relocated to the station housing the training office. According to the fire department personnel, funding for day-to-day operations, response times personnel continue to be a problem. The NIOSH, this is all from the NIOSH report, by the way. The NIOSH investigators reviewed the written fire department SOPs, rules, regulations. These written SOPs and rules or guidelines are generic and provide minimum guidance. However, the fire department's SOP on incident management is very detailed and specific, requiring incident command procedures. The department does not have written SOPs covering such topics as incident safety officer, rapid intervention teams, Mayday procedures, safety and health programs, and engine or truck company operations. The victim had been with this department for approximately 6 years. He was hired in 2005 after serving 15 years with a local volunteer fire department where he held the rank of fire chief for the last 5 years with a volunteer fire department. The lieutenant was assigned to the interior crew, had been with this department for approximately 17 years. Okay, this is the lieutenant on the crew. The incident commander at the time of the incident had been with the department for approximately 25 years, holding the rank of captain. The acting battalion chief on the scene at the time of the incident, who took command following the collapse, had been with the department for approximately 18 years. He had been a captain for the last 4 years leading up to the incident and had worked as an acting battalion chief for the minimum 16 24-hour duty shifts per year. 16 of the 24-hour duty shifts per year. The equipment and personnel. The initially dispatched by radio assignment for this call, including Truck 2, Rescue 2, Engine 3, Tower 3, Engine 1, and the acting battalion chief. Noting that Tower TW3 was out of service, reporting her crew to take Engine 2 a spare, and Engine 1 is actually Engine 6. Doesn't matter for this. The following units responded for the first alarm. T2 with 400 gallons of water, a driver, 2 firefighters, and a captain. R2, 250 gallons of water, rescue truck, a driver, 2 firefighters, and a lieutenant. Engine 2, 500 gallons of water with a driver, the victim, and an acting lieutenant. Engine 3, 1,000 gallons of water, driver, firefighter, and a lieutenant. So a couple of these are staffed by 3. Engine 6, 1,000 gallons of water, driver, 2 firefighters, and an acting captain. And then there was an acting battalion chief. The Truck 2 engine, initial IC, requested a second alarm upon arrival to the incident. Water supply. The fire was located in a rural area. No water hydrants were available in the immediate area surrounding the church. Truck 2 with 400 gallons of water was initially supplied with a 2.5-inch supply line from Engine 3, supplying them with additional 1,000 gallons of water. Engine 6 arrived on scene, pulled parallel to Truck 2, and supplied Truck 2 with another 1,000 gallons of water. A second alarm and mutual aid tankers were requested by Incident Command upon arrival, due to the lack of hydrants in the area. The structure, a fire occurred within the attic space of a church sanctuary constructed in 1991. The sanctuary measured approximately 50 by 84 feet and contained wood frame construction with a brick veneer finish that was situated on a concrete slab. The interior of the sanctuary had been completely consumed by fire following the collapse. The interior walls and ceilings were reported to have been covered with drywall and vaulted ceilings containing suspended lighting, speakers, and fans. The interior contained several rows of wooden pews or chairs, a wooden pulpit, music equipment situated on a carpet floor. The lightweight roof truss system, believed to be 2x4-inch and 2x6-inch lumber connected with gusset plates, spanned the entire width of the sanctuary and ran between the length of the sanctuary. A 3 to 4 foot void space with blown-in insulation existed between the ceiling and roof. There's a note here that says much of the roof truss system was consumed by the fire and exterior load-bearing walls had collapsed or crumbled prior to the NIOS investigation. At the south end of the church, a steeple rested upon the sanctuary's roof. The roof was covered with asphalt shingles. The sanctuary did not contain a sprinkler system, but did have working fire alarm pull stations. It is believed at the time of construction, local building codes did not require the sanctuary to have a sprinkler system. The fire department had not pre-planned the church complex, but was aware that this area did not contain hydrants that could be used for fire suppression. Typical outside of town, rural area, church building, someone donates the land probably, and the congregation puts the money together for a church, but there's no water supply. We got lots of these all over North America. One church we have actually, they did a big renovation about 15, 20 years ago, and they actually put in water. They had to for code. They had to put in a water supply because of the size of the building, and they put the water supply under the new gymnasium. So there's actually a connection on the side of the building that you can draft out of the gymnasium. I wonder if anybody's tried that. I know when I was with the fire department here, we talked about going out there to try that out and see. And I was a little nervous about having to get that close to the building to draft out of it. But anyway, something that is a problem with these big rural buildings. The incident occurred during the day, temperature ranging in the 60s. The area had seen thunderstorms during the day prior to the incident. The wind was coming from the south-southeast at 10 to 15 miles per hour during the incident, which NIOSH investigators believe played a role in fueling and pushing the fire throughout the attic space once the sanctuary self-vented and after the roof of the connecting hallway was vented. Research by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, of course, has shown that wind speeds on the order of 10 to 20 miles per hour, 16 to 32 kilometers per hour, are sufficient to create wind-driven fire conditions in a structure when you have an uncontrolled flow path. Lots of training on that on the ULFSRI training site, Fire Institute Research Sciences. Investigation. Okay. So on June 15th, 15:53 hours, the victim department was dispatched for the report of the church fire. The units responding for the initial alarm included Engine 2, Engine 3, Engine 6, Truck 2, Rescue 2, and the on-duty battalion chief. Truck 2 responded from the west, coming around the seaside, south end of the church, before pulling into the parking lot, which was located on the Alpha side, north end of the church. This approach to the fire scene afforded the arriving units a 360-degree view of the complex. The Truck 2 officer noted smoke coming from the roof and flames emitting from the gables on the Charlie side. Other firefighters from Truck 2 described conditions as heavy black smoke from the roof with flames visible from the seaside, Charlie side gables. The Truck 2 officer immediately transmitted his size up and asked for a second alarm and established himself as incident command. Note, the IC could not remember if the steeple was still standing on the south end Charlie side of the roof or not. A walk around for the church was not conducted by this incident commander because they kind of driven around. Arriving personnel on Engine 6 noticed smoke and flames coming from the roof upon their arrival. Firefighters from Rescue 2 said fire and smoke were visible on the Charlie side gables of the roof. The battalion chief advised NIOSH investigators that upon arriving on the scene, he observed that the steeple was still standing with fire visible on the Charlie side gables and smoke coming from around the steeple, but smoke was heavier from the eaves but down below. Note, firefighters interviewed do not recall seeing non-emergency vehicles parked at the church that would have indicated the church might have been occupied at the time of the incident. Truck 2 was positioned in the parking lot in front of the entrance closest to the sanctuary. Engine 6 pulled parallel to Truck 2 facing the opposite direction, while Rescue 2 and the battalion chief pulled into the parking lot away from fire suppression units. The driver of Rescue 2 placed an orange cone in front of this entry to signify the command post and the accountability tag drop point. All interior and roof personnel dropped their tags at the command post before entry. Good stuff. I'm happy with that. The church was secured, requiring a door on the Alpha side to be breached. After Firefighter 1 breached the entry door with a 6-foot pike pole, the Rescue 2 officer and 4 firefighters, Firefighter 1, 2 from Rescue 2, and Firefighter 3 and 4 from Truck 2 made initial entry in the sanctuary, bringing with them a charged single 2.5-inch extension of 1 3/4 hose line from Truck 2. Note, no additional equipment was initially brought in with them, such as a thermal imaging camera. That's unfortunate. And it's a small line for a big building. 2 of the firefighters from Engine 6 were tasked by the battalion chief with a cutting ventilation hole trench cut as close as possible to where the connecting hall met the sanctuary roof, being sure to sound the roof as they got closer to the sanctuary. The driver from Rescue 2 laddered the connecting hall with a 20-foot ladder just left of where the firefighters had made entry. The roof crew grabbed a roof saw and ascended the ladder to scope out for a location for the cut. Once positioned on the roof, Engine 6 firefighters made a 5-foot by 18-inch cut, but they were only able to initially remove a section approximately 12 by 12 inches cut over a rafter. A second 1 3/4 hose line was deployed from Engine 2 for the roof crew. to use in case they were met with fire. The battalion chief then began a walk around of the church complex, going counterclockwise from the command post on the Alpha side. The initial interior crew indicated that visibility was good throughout the sanctuary, a light haze at the ceiling level. Remember, big buildings are often deceiving. They don't look like there's a big fire in there because it's contained in the void spaces, and the space is so big that the concentration, the density of the smoke is not there. This fools a lot of firefighters into trouble. As they spread out, Firefighter 3 stretched the hose line along the Bravo side wall of the sanctuary all the way until he reached the raised platform pulpit area situated in front of the Charlie side wall, where the fire had been visible from the exterior. Firefighter 2 assisted in pulling additional hose for Firefighter 3 from the entry door. Remember, there's only 2 of them. Before exiting the structure to retrieve a flashlight. Something you should have with you, I would say. But second Monday morning quarterbacking here, I always had one on my turnout gear and one on my helmet. At the same time, Engine 3 and Engine 2 arrived on scene and observed heavy black smoke and visible fire that had vented on the south end of the roof. It's unclear, the note says here, if the steeple had toppled over at this point yet. While stretching the hose line, Firefighter 3 observed Firefighter 1 open up a small portion of the seaside wall in the area of the Charlie Delta corner and ceiling that exposed a substantial amount of fire, area above and behind the raised platform, which Firefighter 3 attacked with the 1 3/4 hose line until he reached the area behind the raised platform with Firefighter 1. Firefighter 2 then re-entered the structure to assist in finding an attic access hatch. The Rescue 2 officer met Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 3 behind the raised platform, Charlie Delta corner, and they decided that an attic ladder was necessary to better access the fire. Firefighter 4 exited momentarily to retrieve an additional pike pole to help Firefighter 1. When Firefighter 4 returned with the pike pole, Firefighter 5 and the victim were standing just in front of the raised platform within the sanctuary. There's a note here that says Firefighter 5 and the victim had been ordered by the IC, Truck 2 officer, because he was the initial IC, to follow the hose line in and see if the initial crew needed any assistance. Firefighter 4 exited the church again to retrieve the attic ladder. Firefighter 5 stated that when they entered the sanctuary there was white smoke and they could not see the Charlie side wall from the initial entry point. So smoke is increasing in the building, but apparently. Before turning the corner to look at the Charlie side of the sanctuary, the battalion chief was met by the Engine 6 officer at the Charlie Delta corner where they observed the steeple tilting into the sanctuary roof. And I'll put photos on our social media here for these pictures, and they're also in the NIOSH report. Note here, the battalion chief stated he observed the steeple fall and immediately attempted to call the incident commander over the radio to advise him of this, but no radio traffic was heard on the recording transcripts. Following his attempts to contact Incident Command over the radio, the battalion chief immediately walked back to the command post to speak with the incident commander regarding the integrity of the roof. While waiting for the attic ladder, Firefighter 3 and Firefighter 1 took turns operating the hose line towards the ceiling in an attempt to control the fire. Firefighter 5 and the victim noticed fire coming from the recessed lighting within the ceiling above them. The victim stated to Firefighter 5, "This could get bad really quick." Once the attic ladder was delivered to the raised platform, a small portion of the ceiling fell into the sanctuary, hitting Firefighter 2 and exposing heavy amounts of fire above the ceiling level that was too much to be handled with a single hose line. The victim stated to Firefighter 5, Firefighter 2, and Firefighter 4, "We need to get out now." At approximately the same time, Rescue 2 officer had a brief conversation with Incident Command over the radio about backing out of the structure. Almost simultaneously, a large section of the ceiling roof collapsed into the sanctuary where Firefighter 1, 2, 5, and the victim were standing. At the time of the collapse, the fire pushed through the ventilation hole recently cut by the Engine 6 firefighters. The roof crew was unaware that the sanctuary roof had started to collapse. They had to be ordered off the roof by the battalion chief and the driver of Engine 6. At the time of the collapse, Rescue 2 officer was standing with Firefighter 1 and 3 close to the Charlie Delta corner. The sanctuary became engulfed with fire, burning debris in extreme heat. The Rescue 2 officer was knocked down by falling debris and visibility quickly became zero. Firefighter 1 was separated from the Rescue 2 officer and Firefighter 3, 2, 4, and 5 and the victim. standing in front of the raised platform. All were separated following the collapse. Firefighter 3 assisted the Rescue 2 officer in getting up. They did not observe any other firefighters close to them. Firefighter 5 managed to make it to a Bravo side window, which he broke and escaped through the opening. Firefighter 5 stated to the NIOSH investigators that he immediately looked back to see if any firefighters had followed him to the window, but no one appeared. Firefighter 3 and the Rescue 2 officer felt their way along the Delta side wall until they found a window, which they also broke and exited through. Firefighter 1, 2, and 4 made their way crawling over and through the church pews and fire debris until they were able to exit through the initial entry door to the command post. They all quickly checked in with the IC, where they were notified that the victim was unaccounted for. So at least they knew they had a victim that was unaccounted for right away. We've done so many of these where they didn't really know how many people were inside, but they had that accountability drop-off point, which is good. The Truck 2 officer relinquished command to Battalion Chief and took over responsibilities for search and rescue of the victim. The IC advised Engine 5 and T Truck 7 upon their arrival that they were to report with personnel to the command post as the rapid intervention team. Firefighters re-entered the structure from different directions to search for the victim: the family center, the connecting hallway, and the exterior of the complex. Radio communications regarding the responding tankers and positioning apparatus continued over the fireground channel. Firefighter 2, the driver of Rescue 2, and the Engine 3 officer advanced an 1 3/4 hose line, the one that went to the roof, through the initial entry door to the opening on the sanctuary, where they were met with another collapse of the roof and fire debris throughout the sanctuary. Entry into this area was deemed unsafe, and the incident commander ordered all firefighters to evacuate the entire structure. The driver of Truck 2 was ordered by the battalion chief to sound his air horn to notify firefighters to evacuate. Firefighters searched the building and checked the connecting hall and family center for the victim, but he remained missing within the sanctuary. At the time of this report, it is believed that the fire originated from a lightning strike to the steeple, which grounded through the copper grounding wire placed within the attic and possibly down the Charlie side interior wall. It is believed that the fire then smoldered in the attic void below the steeple until combustible materials within the attic reached their ignition temperature. Wow, yeah, so they knew it was getting bad, but they were maybe inside a little bit too long. No water supply, limited staffing. These are all issues that are going to happen with this. No thermal imaging cameras, etc. Here goes the recommendations. Kind of not as much fun with just one person here because we don't get any discussion. Okay. Recommendation number 1. Fire departments should ensure that a complete situational size-up is conducted on all structure fires. Amongst most important duties of the first officer at the scene is conducting that initial 360-degree size-up of the incident. During this incident, the initial arriving officer took command and placed his command post directly outside the initial entry door on the Alpha side. That's all good. Arriving from the south, affording incoming units a quick 360-degree view of the complex. He had an additional view of fire conditions on the Charlie side when he arrived from the south, but no conditions could be viewed once positioned on the Alpha side because the church blocked his view. Fixed command posts should be either established in positions that provide the IC with the widest possible field of view of the incident scene. While the IC's view is blocked by obstacles like apparatus, structures, geography, he should quickly assign divisions and groups that can provide the necessary feedback to manage the incident, right? Sector it off. After arriving on scene and establishing the command post, the initial IC did not conduct a full 360 size-up. When the acting BC arrived on scene, he began a walk around to the structure where he discovered that the steeple had toppled over, indicating the potential for further collapse of the roof structure. The initial size-up failed to identify proper strategy and tactics for large non-residential structure. Location and volume of fire hidden above firefighters in the attic void space, a viable water supply for fire suppression, hazards associated with lightweight rust truss roof systems, and the building was unoccupied. There was no cars there. There was a fire alarm system. Whether it was going or not, it doesn't say. Fire departments should be aware of the 2010 International Association of Fire Chiefs Rules of Engagement for Structural Firefighter. These guidelines recommend that ICs conduct or obtain a 360 situational incident size-up, determine the occupant's survival profile, and conduct an initial risk assessment. There was lots of time to get everybody out of there, to do a quick search, a quick primary, which maybe they already did because they obviously didn't mention anything about a search or getting it all clear. Recommendation number 2, fire departments should use risk management principles for all structure fires. While it's recognized that firefighting is an inherently hazardous occupation, risk management principles established by the fire service are based on the philosophy that the greater risks will be assumed when there are lives to be saved and the level of acceptable risk to firefighters is much lower when it's only property. Interior offensive firefighting operations can increase the risk of traumatic injury and death to firefighters from structural collapses, burns, and asphyxiation. Established risk management principles suggest that more caution should be exercised in abandoned, vacant, or unoccupied structures and in situations where there's no clear evidence indicating that people are trapped inside the structure and can be saved. In this incident, the parking lot was vacant and the complex was secured, requiring the church doors to be breached. The volume of fire discovered in the attic was far too large for the initial 1 3/4 hose line and not easily accessible by firefighters. Also, the fire department did not have sufficient water and sufficient fire flow to extinguish a fire in a non-residential structure and the volume of fire that was encountered. This would require a lot of water because of the size of the structure. And access is a problem in these structures that have large sanctuaries, tall ceilings, etc. Recommendation number 3, fire departments should conduct pre-incident planning inspections of buildings within their jurisdictions to facilitate development of safe fireground strategies and tactics. NFPA 1620, Standard for Pre-Incident Planning, states, the purpose of this document shall be to develop pre-incident plans to assist responding personnel effectively managing emergencies for the protection of occupants, responding personnel, property, environment. Since many fire departments have had hundreds of thousands of structures within their jurisdiction, it's obviously a challenge to establish effective pre-planning systems. Priority should be given to those having an elevated or unusual fire hazards, being a high risk and low frequency type incident, and the life safety considerations. During the NIOSH interviews, the firefighters involved in this incident were aware this area did not have effective water supply and that the church had not been pre-planned before the fire. I mean, these buildings are there, they're in your jurisdiction. If you know there's no water supply and there's a risk of a whole bunch of people being in there or a big fire getting going because it's unoccupied, it should be a priority for pre-planning. Recommendation 4, fire departments should ensure that a viable water supply and adequate fire flow is established prior to committing interior crews for fire suppression operations. The discussion about this one is establishing adequate water supply on the fireground is one of the most critical elements of firefighting. It is important that in areas of water distribution system and more critical in areas where water must be supplied, an assessment and decision of suppression methods must be made before attacking a fire in hopes of extinguishment and keeping firefighters safe while doing so. Yeah, you got to have a water supply plan, and before you commit too far in, I mean, they only had 3,000 gallons or so, 4,000 gallons of water on the scene. Fire departments should be aware of potential hazards. This is number 5, associated with lightweight wood structures that have been exposed to fire for an extended period of time and knowledge of the potential collapse within the structure. During fire operations, 2 rules exist about structural collapse. The potential for structural failure always exists during and after a fire, and the collapse danger zone must be established. If the fire is not venting through the roof, interior fire suppression crews must act quickly in exposing the concealed spaces such as walls, soffits, and drop ceilings so that the seed of a fire it can be may spread quickly, be contained and extinguished through coordinated water application. So they did that. They did get an exposed. They opened up the ceiling and stuff, and they found fire, and they couldn't get at it. They had inadequate water, inadequate supplies to knock it out, and then the fire was spreading. The victim said, "Look at this. The fire was coming out the lighting holes and stuff." Opening up concealed spaces will also provide interior fire suppression crews a good view of structural support components in order to assess any damage or instability. The assessment will assist the fire department in making the the decision to manage the fire offensively or defensively, to designate a safety officer, and whether or not to establish a collapse zone. In this incident, the age, type of construction, and no intentional internal supporting columns were indicated that it should have suggested the possibility of lightweight wood trusses being used in the roof system if there was no columns, right? Recommendation 6, the fire department should develop, implement, and enforce written standard operating procedures for occupational safety and health program in accordance with NFPA 1500. The risk for fatal injury among firefighters is high compared to other occupations. An increasing body of scientific literature demonstrates that organizational practices are effective in reducing worker injuries when top-level management is committed to safety by establishing, fostering compliance with safety policies, practices, and identifying safety hazards and promoting solutions. I can guess from the preamble that they've been through several fire chiefs. They'd had cuts and issues with that, so I'm guessing that they might not have been focused on safety as much as they were with trying to maintain service levels and keep the fire department going, which is unfortunate. Recommendation 7, fire department should train fire personnel to communicate interior and exterior conditions to the incident commander as soon as possible and provide regular updates. Proper size up and a risk versus gain analysis requires the incident commander to have a number of key pieces of information and be kept informed of the constantly changing conditions on the fireground. Chief Brunacini states that critical fireground factors, including interior and exterior conditions, are among the many items that the IC must consider when evaluating tactical situations. It is the incident commander's responsibility to do whatever is required to stay effectively informed. This may include requesting periodic updates from the interior and or exterior crews. That's where those sectors come in, because you can divide and say this sector what's going on, that sector what's going on, and the sector officer is more engaged on the safety side as well. Oh, we're not supposed to use it. Divisions or groups, not sectors. ICS compliant, not sectors. Recommendation number 8, fire departments should familiarize and continually train all personnel in building construction, types, and safety considerations. Fire department's familiarity with types of construction in the community is an important safety tool in safely fighting fires. Fire departments cannot rely on the structure to not collapse. The fire department should constantly be evaluating their fireground strategy and tactics and observing potential indicators of collapse, such as time exposed to fire, construction type, noises, cracks demonstrated by the building, what's going on. Obviously, the steeple collapsing was a big indicator. This department had limited documented training and no operating procedures for different types of building construction and safety factors associated with each type. Recommendation 9. The department should ensure that a separate incident safety officer, independent from the incident commander, is appointed at each structure fire within the initial dispatch. So very important to have that second set of eyes looking out for safety if the incident commander obviously is too busy. And this incident commander also didn't have an aide. So this person was probably overwhelmed with the resources he had. He had about 6 or 7 engines there, all reporting directly to him if he hadn't sectored off, which the span of control is 3 to 7 max, and 7 is probably too much if they're in an IDLH atmosphere. Anyway, that's a wrap up, a quick overview of the Muncie, Indiana 2011 church collapse. This could happen anywhere. We have these buildings in all of our jurisdictions, so please be aware, think of it. Water supplies, how far you're going to get in before you decide that you can't do anything about it. That's the thing. That's why we're doing this podcast. Thank you very much for listening to another episode of the Emergency Traffic Podcast. Just me this time, trying to get another episode out in June here for you. So give us a like, give us a thumbs up, tell a friend, and thanks for listening, and please stay safe.